Hello everyone, welcome back to Axon Health. If you follow our page, you know that every Friday we do videos about habits. These are just all different types of habits, whether it's, nutrition, exercise, finances, mental health, stuff that we implement, stuff we might implement with our patients, and stuff we see that actually has some decent benefit, anecdotally and in the research. So I put 5 different habits up here that we like to work on together, my wife and I. Also habits that we've seen benefit in our life and habits that have definitely been helpful to other people that we implement into their treatment plans. Now, before I start, there's a really good book called The Power of Habit. It's a book basically about the evidence and the science about changing habits and why some people fail. So basically we have a cue and then a routine and a reward. And sometimes changing the cue alone can be really, really beneficial. So for the cue, for say someone who has a really hard, big trouble with, say, self-control, and when they see cookies in their drawer, they will just eat the cookies because that is their cue. So the cue is seeing the cookies, visualizing the cookies. Their routine is eating the cookies, and the reward is how they feel emotionally, or the satisfaction they get from eating these cookies. Before I go any further, I do want to say there are a couple things why habits don't stick. I wrote it where you can't really see it, but basically, habit change comes down to patience, okay? You can change the cue and you can have all the dedication in the world, but if you've had a habit for 15 years and it's a poor habit that has been affecting your life in an unhealthy manner, the chances are it's not just going to change overnight. And so people get really, really impatient. And this really comes down to FI, frustration intolerance, which basically plagues all humans. It's what's taught through the founding of cognitive behavioral therapy. Humans really don't really have a good concept of dealing with frustration really well. And when humans tend to get stressed, they use unhealthy sources to basically cope with that. And it doesn't really work for 99% of the people. And drastic. People, when they want to make a habit change, if you've been eating fast food at McDonald's and you haven't cooked a meal, to think that that's going to change overnight is usually never going to stick. That's why in dieting or just eating patterns, people that take these drastic approaches, it doesn't seem to stick in the long term. So the first habit we're going to talk about, which is the habit that I talked about on Friday on our Instagram, is sleep. So having a consistent sleep schedule is really, really important in the literature. So for me, I like to get 7 hours to 8 hours. I went a very long time when I was in chiropractor school, sleeping 4 to 5 hours a day, and it really messed up my mental health, especially with all the caffeine usage I was using to basically keep myself awake. I had no natural energy whatsoever. I just was shot with the amount of just unhealthy behaviors I have. So sleep time is also important too. There is research that shows that, say, nurses, for example, that work 12 weeks of nights than 12 weeks of days, or people that work at night tend to have more problems down the road. This can be tied to a bunch of things with the circadian rhythm, and just usually people that work at night, sometimes they see that they don't have the healthiest other habits in their life. This isn't speaking for anyone. It's just things they have seen in the research. Caffeine. A lot of people like caffeine. I love caffeine. Having caffeine probably, again, it's anecdotal and everyone's different, but examine.com, which is a great site to look for supplement or just information about nutrition in general. And it was free. I think there's a membership now, but it's called examine.com. And drinking caffeine after 2 to 4 p.m. is probably not good, with the upper tolerable limit being for most people 400 milligrams a day, which is kind of iffy because my pre-workout alone has 425 milligrams per scoop. So it's something that we want to be cautious about. In the mattress, we all have heard the saying, mattress every 7 years. I don't know much about that. Some people like firmer mattresses. Some people like softer mattresses. I really, again, think it's up to the individual because research will sway in either direction, at least stuff I've read. I like a decently firm mattress. I don't like sinking too far in, especially if I'm a side sleeper, because then it just messes up your mechanics like that. So just figuring out one that fits your biomechanics will probably be the best advice I can give you. Nutrition. So I'm not going to talk about in-depth nutrition, just habit-wise. Again, most reasons why people don't have good habits with nutrition is because they take drastic approaches and they don't have patience. There's multiple different recommendations. I like the 1 to 2 servings of vegetables per 1,000 calories per day, or 1 serving of fruit per 1,000 calories a day. So I have a maintenance calories of 3,500. So I try to eat 5 to 6 servings of vegetables a day, 1 to 2 servings of fruit. That's what works for me. So getting your macronutrients and your micronutrients in. I tell people all the time, you can have a really, really shitty diet and having a third-party tested multivitamin, that's cool and all, but chances are it's really not going to probably do shit if all your other lifestyle factors are terrible. So consistency and adherence, as we all know in the evidence-based nutrition world, is the most important thing for long-term success. If you're doing something, even if it's the most optimal, but you don't enjoy doing it, chances are you're not going to stick with it. So you have to find what you enjoy, and that's going to be different for every single person. Psychological factors as well. So another reason why habits are really bad is because people label foods as good or bad. There is no such thing as a good or bad food. That food is not out to harm you. It doesn't make much sense when you break it down actually using cognitive behavioral therapy. So we just have foods that aren't as nutrient dense, calorie dense foods. And to say that they're just bad for you is not true. Now, you can make the argument for hydrogenated oils and trans fats. I understand keeping those minimally or out of your diet at all. But, people will look at a piece of cake and say that is bad for you. Well, that's not true. If I've said this same scenario. If you have a maintenance calories of 3,500 calories a day and you're eating 85 to 95% of your food from whole foods, whatever you choose to eat those from, you're getting your micros and your macronutrients in, and you want to have a piece of cake and it's 300 calories, that's another problem. But there's, people label food as good or bad, and that itself has a wide range of problems way down the road. Exercise. So resistance training, aka strength training, and cardiovascular activity. Another reason why people don't stick with this is because most people are beginners. I would say 98% of people that are in the gym right now, even for 10 years, are beginners, no matter how good they look. They don't know how to progressive overload. They don't know much about volume or frequency or deloads or mini cuts or just anything really, adding sets or volume and progression schemes in proper form. I can go on forever here, and that's okay. It's just that they haven't nailed down the basics. So what they do is a lot of people, they get into other bad habits where they say, I've hit my genetic ceiling and I need to take anabolic steroids now. Well, no, you haven't. Your training is just not on par. And there's so much poor information on there. If you really want good information, there's probably only a few people I'd recommend. RP, the guys at RP, Dr. Mike Israel, Hoffman, Jared Feather, and Melissa, Lane Norton, his whole crew, Matt Ogus, Jeff Nipper, Chris Barakat. There's not that many people out there that really are providing good evidence-based nutrition, exercise stuff that's in a balanced approach. It comes down to a lot of drastic stuff. And as we know, as I will cover in everything again, drastic approaches almost never work because they're drastic and they don't involve patience. It's instant gratification, and we're obsessed with that as humans. So again, it just really comes down to balance. The overall if most people watching this are not into the stuff that I'm into or people that compete, you're 3 to 4 days a week. Having some decent progressive overload, cardio a couple times a week, but realizing the principle of specificity that if you want to train for a bodybuilding show, but you also want to train to be an endurance athlete, something's going to give and it's probably not going to work out too well. You can learn more about that in RP's new book. So finances. I did a video on this 2 weeks ago. This is really important. People have very, very poor financial skills. I know I was one of them. I had to learn really fast. So like drinking coffees every day, buying a $3 coffee doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's after tax money. And if you're making the average salary of $48,000 a year after taxes, let's say you're bringing home $40,000, $39,000, and you're spending $1,500 of that $40,000 a year, $1,500 of that $40,000, and then you're probably eating out. If you break it down like that, it doesn't take a lot of conscious awareness to realize that you're really never going to get ahead. A new statistic just came out. I can't remember if it came from Harvard, their MBA program, that 57% of Americans cannot cover a $500 like mishap bill or just some random bill, $500. 57%. That's not good. And it all comes down to financial literacy. And we can go back and talk about if they should be teaching this in school. Financial literacy and cognitive behavioral therapy, in my opinion, if they were taught from, say, 5th grade on, we'd have much less problems. That's just a hypothesis, but I do believe that. We have savings, so emergency funds, getting rid of your debt, bad debt. A lot of people, when we left school, it cost us $14,000 to move here. We were like, we're paying off that $14,000 no matter what. Get a rain check account up, buy a house, start getting some investment properties. The percentage ratios for savings are different. I let my financial advisor handle all that. So I'm not a financial advisor. I just know that financial literacy is very, very important. But poor spending, coffee, buying $200 of weed every week, going to the bar 2 times a week, eating out every week. So there's a lot of different habits that come into play here. Number 5, this is probably the most important one to me, and that's avoidance and numbing. So compulsive behaviors are things that people tend to do compulsively to either avoid uncomfortable feelings. So humans are very, very obsessed with not feeling comfort. We don't like feeling comfort. We'll do anything we can to get away from feeling comfort. And this is really the way backwards. In order to get past, say, if you have an anxiety disorder or you have social anxiety, you have to have behavioral changes and go through them. Just being aware of your problem won't do it. It's a good step, but you have to make the behavioral changes. There's a reason why the gold standard for everything is called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And other therapies in the research like psychoanalytics, which comes from Sigmund Freud, which I've talked about, just diving into your past might work a little bit, but in my opinion, it's complete garbage. So the compulsive behaviors, and we have a couple here like alcohol, marijuana, porn and sex, caffeine, work. A lot of, America, we're just obsessed with working. Work. I don't feel well, let's bang out, go back to work. Lawyers, doctors, there's so many irrational beliefs that if you don't work 80 hours a week, you're considered weak, and you are supposed to care about other people before you take care of yourself. Caring about yourself is not selfishness. It's important. You have to care about yourself. If your mental health and your physical health is not proper and not up to par with your standards, you're probably not going to give the best care. That's okay. You just have to learn. It's a mistake. Nothing wrong. Humans make mistakes. I do want to talk about a couple of these a little bit more in depth. So since porn and sex is something that I've struggled with severely, trying to recover right now from porn addiction, it is really a big compulsive behavior. Feel anxious, watch some porn. It's not real. There's nothing inherently good or bad about porn. Just for most people, the literature is pointing to, it's probably problematic. And marijuana. So I live in Colorado. Marijuana is legal here, a bunch of other states. If you're smoking weed all day long, chances are you're running from something. I know a lot of people that smoke weed all day long. I wouldn't say their mental health is the best. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be, in order to make awareness, you have to talk about something. It's not putting anyone down. I'm not mentioning any names. But, you smoking weed all day is not good. Is marijuana good for you? I'm not going to say it's not my scope of practice, but I can tell you this, that putting a foreign substance into your pulmonary physiology on a daily basis probably isn't good. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, so, people smoke weed all day and they're like, it's just weed, it's cool. No, I'm sorry, it's not. Like, smoking weed's fine. I love smoking joints here and there. But, smoking weed all day long, you're probably running from something. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Really everything here comes down to balance, and everyone's habits are going to be different to them specifically. Some people will need different habits in certain areas. Some people will need habits in other areas. Some people are really lacking in financial literacy, which is most people. Some people are really lacking in sleep because they're overworked with their job, and they might be afraid to maybe start implementing these habits because, let's say a orthopedic surgeon going to your boss and being like, hey, look, I don't want to work 75 hours a week. They'll be like, well, I know someone who will. It's just not a good, we have really poor irrational beliefs in this country when it comes to work, and that really can lead to bad sleep habits, bad nutrition, exercise, finance. That's just one example. So a lot of these intertwine over each other. And again, if all these habits are really poor and you have other lifestyle habits that are poor, a lot of people will go to this numbing area. So it's something I've done quite often. My whole entire life, I really am trying to make changes. That's very uncomfortable for me. And it's not going to be comfortable. So that's what I want to leave you with. If you're really serious about making a change in your life, making that change is going to be uncomfortable. And that's okay. We hear those cliches, being uncomfortable is a sign of growth. There is truth to that. And you're going to have setbacks and you might have relapses, but that doesn't mean if you fall off the horse, you can't get back on. So thank you for listening. Hope you guys have a great day.